Famed gator hunter Troy Landry of the show Swamp People has found himself in a little bit of hot water.
Louisiana wildlife and fishery agents cited him after an undercover sting in.
For years, Troy Landry was the one man the swamp refused to break. Viewers watched him face massive alligators like it was just another morning routine, turning danger into something almost ordinary. He became the king of the swamp, a symbol of grit and confidence. But in 2025, Troy faced something he couldn't grab, predict, or overpower. It didn't happen in the bayou, where skill usually saves him. It happened in the quiet spaces of life, where strength feels different. Have you ever imagined someone like Troy feeling powerless? Is strength really the same as control? Long before television made him famous, Troy was already living a life most people would never choose. He grew up deep in Louisiana's bayou country, where being Cajun wasn't a brand, it was survival. The swamp wasn't scenery. It was work, school, and sometimes the judge of your mistakes. If you wanted to provide for your family, you stepped into the water even when it unsettled you. Hunting alligators wasn't a thrill-seeking hobby. It was tradition, passed down quietly through generations. Fear wasn't discussed. Pain was normal. You kept going, because that's what everyone before you had done. By the time audiences met him, Troy had already spent decades pushing past limits. The cameras didn't create him. They simply introduced him to the world. The swamp rewards skill and confidence, but it never promises mercy. The same place that feeds you can humble you without warning. In that culture, you don't complain. You endure. You show up even when your body feels worn down. But what happens when endurance becomes so normal that you stop noticing the cost? The first real warning came as pain that refused to fade. Around 2021, Troy began dealing with constant back pain, not the kind you stretch away, the kind that follows you into sleep and greets you before your feet hit the floor. For a man whose life depends on strength and balance, his own spine became his greatest obstacle. He eventually had surgery, and when the pain finally eased, it felt unreal, like silence after years of noise. For many people, that would be the moment to slow down. But slowing down isn't easy when your identity is built on pushing forward. Then came another challenge in 2022. A prostate cancer diagnosis. No matter how strong you are, hearing that word changes the room. Troy faced surgery again, this time for something far bigger than mobility. He stayed calm, leaned on faith, thanked his doctors, and moved ahead. He survived. Fans celebrated. It felt like a victory, and it was. But survival doesn't erase the wear and tear of decades spent working in extreme conditions. It doesn't flip a switch and make you invincible. As he returned to filming, another issue surfaced in 2024. A regulatory citation related to alligator tagging in St. Mary Parish brought unexpected public attention. It wasn't dramatic, and it wasn't criminal. It was a paperwork and compliance matter. Still, when your image is built on being steady and reliable, even a small legal headline can feel heavy. Troy wasn't arrested. He wasn't banned from hunting. The issue was handled, but it added pressure at a time when his body and mind were already carrying a lot. Strength doesn't shield you from scrutiny. It just means you carry it quietly. And then came the moment that changed everything, not on the water, but in a hospital room. It wasn't about Troy's health or reputation. It was about his grandson, Crew. Crew was born with biliary atresia, a rare and serious liver condition that blocks bile ducts and damages the liver. Most families don't even know the term until a doctor explains why a newborn's eyes look yellow or why swelling won't go down. For Troy's family, those conversations became reality. As months passed, Crew's condition worsened. He needed a liver transplant. Without it, the outlook was heartbreaking. For a man used to taking action, this was different. There was no skill to rely on, no instinct to sharpen, just waiting. Waiting for a match, waiting for a call, waiting for hope. Troy could face wild waters without hesitation, but he couldn't trade places with his grandson. All he could do was sit beside a hospital bed, hold a tiny hand, and ask people to pray. When Troy shared updates, there was no television drama. Just honesty. A grandfather asking for support. Fans who had watched him for years saw a different kind of courage. Not the loud, physical kind, but the quiet endurance of showing up every single day when you can't fix the problem. Maybe that's the hardest kind of strength, the kind that forces you to be still. During this same period, while filming in April 2025 for Swamp Mysteries, Troy and his team uncovered old human remains deep in the marsh. They weren't recent, and there was no crime involved. The remains were part of long-forgotten burial grounds, revealed as the land slowly shifted over time. It was history resurfacing, a reminder that the swamp holds stories long after people are gone. Troy's tone was different that day. Reflective, respectful. He spoke about how the land keeps memories, how it gives and takes on its own timeline. The timing felt heavy. While a child fought for life in a hospital, the swamp revealed echoes of lives long past. One story about beginnings hanging in the balance. Another about endings returning to the surface. It wasn't dramatic. It was real, and it underscored something deeper. Control is often an illusion. Nature, time, and life move at their own pace. When you step back, the real story isn't one single event. It's the accumulation. Years of physical strain, health battles, public scrutiny, family fear. Long before this, Troy had already experienced personal loss, including the passing of his brother. Life in and around the swamp has never been gentle. You mourn, then you keep going because responsibility doesn't pause. This isn't about blame. Cancer wasn't caused by the swamp. Crew's illness wasn't caused by tradition. But generations of hard living come with invisible weight. Toughness helps you survive, but it doesn't cancel consequences. It simply helps you carry them longer. Today, Troy Landry is still the steady figure people recognize. Calm, capable, grounded. But the crown he wears feels different now. Not lighter, heavier. Wrestling alligators taught him physical strength. The last few years demanded something deeper. Patience, faith. The ability to love fiercely when outcomes are uncertain. The courage to wait. Maybe the swamp was never teaching domination at all. Maybe it was teaching endurance in every form. So when you think about Troy Landry now, ask yourself this. Is true strength measured by what you can conquer, or by what you can endure? For most of his life, endurance meant waking up before sunrise, stepping into humid air thick as fog, and heading straight into uncertainty. It meant reading the water like a map, noticing the smallest ripple, trusting instinct over comfort. Out there, hesitation can cost you. Confidence keeps you steady. That kind of environment shapes a person. It teaches you to act, to decide, to move forward even when conditions aren't perfect. But the last few years have shown a different kind of lesson. Endurance is not always loud. It is not always physical. Sometimes it looks like sitting in a quiet hospital hallway long after visiting hours should have ended. Sometimes it looks like checking your phone every few minutes, hoping for good news. Sometimes it means staying strong for your family even when your own thoughts feel heavy. Troy built his name on action. When something moved in the water, he responded. When a storm rolled in, he adjusted. When a season got tough, he worked harder. That rhythm made sense. Effort led to results. Skill led to success. But life outside the swamp doesn't always follow that formula. There are moments where effort doesn't guarantee outcome, where love doesn't automatically fix what's broken, where strength is measured by how steady you remain when answers don't come quickly. Think about how rare that transition is. To go from being the person everyone relies on for solutions to being the person who can only wait. To understand that control has limits, that even the toughest hands sometimes have to open and let time do what it will. That shift changes a man, not by weakening him but by deepening him. When fans see Troy now, they still see the familiar hat, the steady voice, the confidence on the water. But underneath that image is someone who has faced his own vulnerability and kept moving forward. Not because he had to prove anything, but because life kept asking him to show up. Show up for recovery, show up for family, show up for hope, and maybe that's the real evolution of strength. It begins with physical courage, but it matures into emotional resilience. It starts with mastering your environment, but it grows into accepting what you cannot master. The swamp may have trained Troy's hands and instincts, but the trials of recent years trained his patience. There's something powerful about realizing that legends are still human, that even someone known for toughness feels fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion. It doesn't reduce their legacy. It makes it more relatable, because everyone, in their own way, faces a season where effort alone isn't enough. So when you look at Troy Landry's journey, don't just see the hunts, the headlines, or the victories. See the waiting. See the quiet prayers. See the man learning that endurance isn't about overpowering what stands in front of you. It's about standing firm when life shifts beneath your feet. And maybe that's the message that lingers longer than any single season. Strength isn't just about what you can take down. It's about what you can carry without giving up. It's about loving your family fiercely even when outcomes are uncertain. It's about waking up each day and choosing to believe that tomorrow can still bring good news. The swamp is unpredictable. So is life. Both demand respect. Both demand patience. And both reveal, over time, who you really are. So if you're still wondering what true strength looks like, maybe it looks less like domination and more like devotion. Less like control and more like commitment. Because in the end, conquering something might earn applause. But enduring something shapes your soul,